Welcome back to the Green Line Gazette, episode 22. Today, me and returning guest Jack Cavanaugh are going to be predicting our round of 32 and knockout stage brackets. Disclaimer, Canada did just beat South Africa 1-0 and then 90+2 at the death. So obviously we won't predict that one. I don't know about you, Jack. I think I was probably going to pick Canada anyway to win that game.
I watched the second half. I was definitely cheering for Canada. So
it's always good to see a host nation doing well. No doubt about that. But remember, we're on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and Substack. With no further ado, we might as well just get right into this. So first up, we're going Germany and Paraguay. I think this will be a very interesting one because, obviously they're not going to be playing with 10 men like they did against Turkey. But when they played that low block against Turkey, it worked really well. Like Turkey had no answer for that. And I'm kind of thinking, I don't know about you, but I'm along the lines of, obviously they know Germany's the technically superior opponent. I think if you're Paraguay, I think you put yourself in this low block and you just drag it out like you did the Turkey game and hope you catch them on like a counter or you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, there's only so much that like a team that's clearly technically weaker than the opponent they're going up against can do to put themselves in a position to succeed. But that low block is definitely something that they can attempt to do, see if they can disrupt Germany long enough, and then, like you said, just kind of grab a goal at the end, hold on to the game. I think that Paraguay have a chance here, without a doubt.
Yeah, and I also think if Germany can keep this game moving and fluid and just very fast, I think Paraguay is going to fall apart at some point. But if they get stuck into it almost reminds me of like the UCL final where Arsenal was able to drag PSG into this really slow, physical, not so pretty game. And if Paraguay can do that, I really wouldn't be too shocked here, to be honest, if they pull this off.
Yeah. Worth noting as well that Germany fielded a very solid 11 against it was Ecuador in their third game, and they ended up losing, still topped the group. So it was sort of a similar situation to the U.S. They did not necessarily need a win. But coming off a loss, and it's not like you're fielding your B team. They had some real players out there. So definitely is going to be an interesting game. I would say, though, if we're ready to jump into predictions, I'm still going to go for Germany there. I just think that they have that quality. Paraguay is not a team that has a whole lot of knockout stage experience in the World Cup. Germany is just a dominant force. They've been here before, and I think that the deeper you go in a tournament like this, the more that begins to matter and the more that really shows. So I'm going to go with Germany.
Yeah, I'm going to agree here, right? I really wouldn't be surprised if Paraguay make this a serious game and really even pull it off, right? You like you mentioned, you just saw Ecuador do that. But, this Germany team is a lot more experienced. This Paraguay team looked very, very shaky, especially against us, right, in game one of the group stage. So I'm going to ride with Germany here as well. Moving down the bracket now, we have France versus Sweden, which is, I think, just very unlucky for Sweden because I think they're actually a pretty class side. It's just very unfortunate you're running into probably, I would say, my favorite and a lot of people's favorites. France, very easily cruised through their group, right? They thrashed Norway 4-1, although Norway, kind of sat everybody, which was a little bit interesting. But I'm really excited about the Sweden attack, right? You have Isak, you have Gyökeres, you have Alenga. If they're firing all on the same, cylinder, that it's going to be, it's scary for any defense, to be honest. And I think they're hungry. I know everyone probably saw that clip of where Alenga had his head down and was really upset because he thought that Sweden hadn't made it out of the group. Of course they had at that point, but it shows you how much passion there is for Sweden there.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, like you said, I think Sweden is just a fantastic side. They have some great quality, and they play well as a team. They had a little bit of bumps throughout the knockout stage, but overall, I saw good things out of them in the times that I did catch them. The one thing that I would note as well is the fact, like as you said, Norway chose to basically deferred that game against France. And now that you look at the table, you can see that Norway chose to put themselves on the other side of the bracket and play the Ivory Coast and then what would likely be Brazil over playing Sweden or what would likely be Germany. And I think that says a lot about how other teams look at the teams that they're playing. Like Norway almost elected to avoid playing Sweden in that situation. And so I think that definitely shows at least what the players and managers are thinking when it comes to games like this, because I don't know. I think that Sweden is a fantastic side. I think that France, obviously, we can kind of transition to talking about them. Everyone always shows the like strike force that they have up there with that attack. They've got Doué, Mbappe, just like ridiculous talent up front. Dembele as well, the current Ballon d'Or winner. So I think that this will be one of, if not the most exciting round of 32 game. And just, I don't know, that this top left side of the bracket has got some really spicy games, some really interesting lineups and matchups there. And I think that this is where a good chunk of the talent is coming from as far as teams in the round of 32. So I'm excited for this game. This is one I'm definitely going to be catching because it's going to say a lot about the implications for the rest of the tournament.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. France is just, I mean, obviously you've seen great teams. You've seen Spain in 2010 and when they won the Euros in 2012 and those early, like the 2006 Italian teams that won that World Cup. But as far as I can remember, this is probably the best team I think I've ever watched, like hands down, just in terms of raw talent alone. Right. Of course, they won in 2018, runners up in 2022. I think they're posed to go right back to that final if I had to take a guess there. But yeah, I think you're right. This is going to be a great game. I think any game France plays, honestly, is going to be a really good game. And it's just so crazy that we get to watch the lineup they field. It's almost like you could make a really good argument that a lot of the players that start for France are the best in the world at their position, which is absolutely, insane to say.
Yeah, without a doubt. This is a game to watch. And I think France is going to end up taking it, but Sweden's going to give them a rough time. And then you look on from here, you look at where France goes from here. They've got all else, like all going according to plan. They're going to be playing Germany in the round after that, possibly maybe, the Netherlands or Morocco in the round after that. So they have a tough path here to the final. But if there's any team out there that's up for it, it's going to be France. So be exciting to watch for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm also going France here for obvious reasons. I don't think I have to elaborate too much. And again, no disrespect to Sweden, but I don't think this game will be very close. I think Sweden's defense is just not going to be able to keep up with that French attack in the slightest. Of course, here Canada already won because we're filming this after that. I mean, I can let you speak on that game because I wasn't able to catch it, but
yeah, I caught the second half of that game, and we're predicting Canada here, which means we're already 1 for 16 with our predictions, so we're starting off on the good foot. But I don't know. I think that the second half of that game was kind of a very back and forth game to watch. There was a whole lot of, and I watched it from maybe the 55th minute on, so there was tired legs already, and it was pretty obvious, but a lot of kickball, a lot of balls in the air going from one side of the field to the other. So I don't know. Neither of these teams have a lot of, obviously this is Canada's first ever win in the knockout groups and their first ever time in the round of 16 to begin with. So I think that you're naturally prone to be playing more frantically when you're there. And I think South Africa, doesn't have a ton of experience in the knockout stages either. So that was fairly obvious. At the end of the day, it was just a poor defensive clearance. Team shut off in the 92nd minute, and Canada was able to knock it home. But that game could have gone either way. And I also feel that neither of these teams is equipped to be going much deeper in the tournament than this, especially when you look at the other 4 teams, or I guess the other 3 teams that they could be playing: Germany, France, Netherlands, Morocco. There's good teams on this portion of the bracket, and I think Canada's sort of the odd one out here, but exciting to watch for sure. Glad that Canada got a knockout stage win on home turf, but I don't think they're making it much further than this.
Yeah, and shout out to Jesse Marsh, right? The American old Leeds fan, and I believe RP Salzburg. Good to see him doing well. It's always good. But yeah, he's been doing great stuff with Canada. So props to them. But really unlucky because they're gonna run in here. This will be an interesting one. So they're obviously either taking the winner of the Netherlands or Morocco.
Yeah.
Absolutely insane. This is probably going to be the best round of 32 matchup in my opinion. Just the fact that this was able to fall into place the way it did is pretty nuts. This could easily be
unreal.
A quarterfinal, or even a semifinal, to be honest. Of course, Morocco struggled a little bit, I thought, against Brazil and haven't, they didn't look great. On the other hand, I think the Netherlands looked really, really good. This is, for me, I'm really torn here.
Yeah.
The Netherlands, they always look good every tournament, but I think they just lack that, the getting it done factor. And I think, I don't know. The way Morocco plays is it's a very attractive game. And I think for me, I'm going to have to go with Morocco here.
Mm-hmm.
I really think this could go 50-50, but I'm sticking with my gut. My gut tells me Morocco.
Yeah. It's crazy that these two teams ended up falling in place to play each other this early on, because these are two teams who have the capacity to go far in the tournament. If I'm not wrong, I think they both made it into the round of 8 in the previous World Cup. Morocco had that great run that ended against France in the quarterfinal, I think it was. But two fantastic teams, and both of them are undefeated so far in the tournament. They both started off with a draw and then have 2 wins since then. So these are two teams that are high quality teams, but also playing at their highest quality. And so it's going to be a really fun one to watch. You're absolutely right, without a doubt. One of the best games of this early knockout stage. And I think that I could just so easily see it going both ways, but I'd go with Morocco making it through. I think that they've just really been getting things done. I think they're an exciting team to watch. I think that the way that they play, I love how wingback focused it is. They obviously have fantastic outside backs on that team, but just a really solid team in general, and a team that, as we saw with the last World Cup, knows how to get things done when it comes to elimination football. So I'm excited to watch this one.
Yeah, and this Morocco team was a semifinalist. Excuse me, sorry, actually in 2022.
Okay. Yeah.
So if you remember, they knocked out Spain in that round of 16, and then knocked out Portugal, then in the quarterfinals, and then fell to France, which, again, absolutely insane slate of games they had to go through there. And then, of course, they're, and a very contentious topic, they're the technical AFCON champions, or the reigning AFCON champions, I suppose. So they have that mantra with them and that confidence. But at the same time, I mean, this Netherlands team has to be hungry, right? You were quarterfinalists in 2022. In 2018, they didn't qualify. 2014, they were a third place team. Of course, 2010, they lost to Spain in the final. These guys have been runners up 3 times in their history, 4th place finalists once, and then 3rd once. They've been so close. And you got to think that it's that chip on their shoulder. It's going to be bearing down on them. So I think this is going to be a very passionate game. I think you're going to see tempers flare, especially if we're going into a very tight game at the end here, which I'm very excited before. But I'm going to ride with Morocco. That's my final. That's my final. I'm sticking with it. So
looking at the FIFA rankings, these teams are 7 and 8 in the world, which is, again, just, it's absurd that they are going to end up, the cards fell that they're playing each other this early on, but this is how it goes. This is elimination soccer in the World Cup. So I'm really excited for this one. It'll be a great one.
Yeah, absolutely. Moving on here, Portugal, Croatia. I really have not been impressed by Portugal in the slightest. They have looked really bad. They have only scored or I guess they've scored 6 goals in total, right? They drew the Congo 1-1 in that opening game, which is very, very concerning for a team that was honestly, in favorites talks to win this World Cup. You probably have maybe one of the best midfields in the world on paper, and Bruno Fernandes, Vitinha, and João Neves. And you have drawn the Congo 1-1. You have just drawn Colombia last night 0-0, and you beat Uzbekistan 5-1. It's if you want to talk about underwhelming, right? That's exactly what that is, and it's going to be very, very hard for me to pick Portugal here, to be honest, because they've looked, they've looked so weak, and of course, you can. I'm sure you've heard on social media that a lot of people are upset with this Argentina side of the bracket, that it's definitely a lot weaker, and Ronaldo fans voicing their opinion. But if you'll look right here, this is Colombia. This is the team that topped Portugal's group. All Portugal had to do was beat the Democratic Republic of the Congo, or even the draw with Colombia was fine.
Exactly.
And this could be you in a very easy side of the bracket, but they failed to get it done, and I'm really going to have to go with Croatia here.
Yeah, without a doubt. Yeah, and this is just, the Ronaldo fans will say what they want to say, but at the end of the day, if you want to play against easier teams, you got to get it done. And Portugal is a team that I have not seen get it done, not even in this tournament, but for a while. Like we said, knocked out by Morocco in the previous World Cup. Portugal is just a team that on paper every year, they're similar to Belgium. On paper every year, they have this fantastic roster. They've got one of the best midfields in the world, as you said, fantastic outside backs, obviously one of the greatest to ever do it at striker. And just every single year, two fantastic center backs as well. And every single year, it seems to be a different problem. It seems to be something else not working out for them. Without a doubt, I think that Croatia is going to win this game. On paper, it's going to be a fantastic match. Once the match actually begins, I think it's going to be Croatia that runs away with it. I just think that they're a team who knows how to get it done better than Portugal do, and I think that that's going to be what we see once the game starts.
Yeah, and this Croatia team was pretty competitive, I would say, with England. I mean, it's just a really good English team that you happen to get into that group with. They took down Ghana yesterday, which I think was very impressive. I always rate Ghana. I think they're always, especially in the World Cup, for whatever reason, they really seem to turn up and play at their highest level. And of course, they beat Panama 1-0. But of course, England struggled with Panama as well. They just play really slow style of like low block football that you see a lot of these weaker teams doing. So it's hard to assess there. But just going off recent form, I got to think Croatia. And similar to the Netherlands, it's a team that's been so close so many times, right? In 2018, they lose to France. And last World Cup, I think they had an exit in the quarterfinals, if I remember correctly. So I think they're hungry, and I think you got to go Croatia here.
Yeah, I agree.
Now, here's my first, I guess, hot take. I have, you can let me know what you think about this, but I have Austria taking down Spain. Similar to Portugal, I have just been so unimpressed with what the product Spain has put on the field. Of course, they draw Cabo Verde, which I guess we now know Cabo Verde is a lot better than we thought they were, but still, right? You are the reigning Euro champion. Another favorite in the World Cup. You should not be tying Cabo Verde 0-0. Right, that just cannot happen. You beat up on Saudi Arabia, who's like the 60th ranked FIFA team in the world. Like, who cares? And then, right, you beat Uruguay, who's a very quality side at times. Of course, they had, not a great showing getting grouped, but obviously that goal, that their one goal was a massive fluke on the Uruguayan goalkeeper. And so you're basically looking at 2 0-0 draws against technically inferior opponents. And this Austria team looked really good, especially against, top competition like Argentina. And, history does not favor Spain as of recent. They're, of course they won in 2010 in South Africa, but that's almost a one-off result. If you look at their history, right, in 2022 and 2018, they were out in the round of 16. 2014, the reigning champions were grouped. 2006, they're in the round of 16. They've never made it to the semifinals besides the year they won the World Cup, which is kind of shocking to say, but I really am not impressed with the Spain team. I think Austria looks, pretty threatening, and they had a real shot at Argentina. So for that reason, I'm going Austria.
Yeah. I think that I like that you're taking a controversial opinion here. However, in my opinion, I still see Spain winning this game, and I see it for two different reasons. Number one, they're the Euro champion of 2024. I think that's a recent game or a recent tournament that shows that they have the ability to win. In these big games, they have one of the best players in the world right now, Lamine Yamal. They have a fantastic squad, similar to Portugal, one of the best midfields in the world. And I'm excited to see them possibly make a deep tournament run, not just win this game, but win a few more after it. And I don't know. I think that Spain is a team, in my opinion, that I believe plays to a European quality of football. I think that they struggle when it comes to playing these South American or African or Asian sides. I think we've seen that historically a lot, but we saw with the Euro win that when it comes to European football, keep the ball on the ground, tiki-taka, move it between your midfielders, find the open man. Like when it comes to very fluid, attractive football, Spain knows how to play that game. And so when they're going to be playing an Austria side who every single Austrian player is based in a European, top 5 league, I think that becomes an advantage to Spain, because if Austria wants to play the way that Spain is going to play and meet them where they're at, then Spain's just going to run away with it. I think that, I would be worried if Spain were playing Morocco, who knocked them out in the previous World Cup, or if they were playing, I don't know, like a trap game, like against some South American team. I think that I would be worried for them this early on in the tournament, but I think against a European side, I would trust them to beat Austria and be the better team and play the better football. And I think that for those couple of reasons, I would see Spain winning.
And I will leave you with this, right? They won the Euros in 2012, and then, like I said, were grouped in 2014. Of course, they also won the Euros in 2008 and then won the World Cup in 2010. So it goes both ways, but I'm high on this Austria team. I'm going to go with Austria here. Spain have been very lackluster, which has been quite shocking. And I think, they've lacked that success in the World Cup. And I think the World Cup's just a different type of atmosphere. And if they can get over that bump and back to the apex of where they once were, I think maybe, yes, they can go far, but I'm going Austria. We will see, of course, right? All these games are going to be played, so you can hold me to it.
Yeah.
But yes, moving on, of course, I'm predicting the U.S.
Yeah,
right?
Without a doubt. Yeah.
We'll go more into this later on the preview episode, but I guess I'll speak to the aspect that Bosnia is not as easy of a draw as a lot of people, right? You have to remember, this is the Bosnia team that denied Italy from coming to their third, which is absolutely ridiculous. So they haven't made it, right? Story for another day. But this is a team that I thought that Italy team this year was, a lot better than what they fielded in past World Cup qualifications. And they dragged out the game against a superior opponent, took them to, I think it was pens, and obviously qualified for the World Cup. So this is a serious team that should be taken, not lightly.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I also think that the same way that the United States might be downplaying Bosnia's strengths, I think that Bosnia is ready to come into this game and play what they would imagine to be a top side. I think the United States topped their group and Bosnia finished third. And so the United States may have an ego from that and might see themselves as a stronger team because of that. But the reality is that this game is a toss-up. The United States came out of a pretty easy group. I would imagine that the United States still wins. Obviously, I have that faith in them to get it done. But this is going to be a serious game that will prove if the United States is up for the test. I think that if this is a team that they can overcome, then I start to get more comfortable with seeing them play better and better teams as the tournament progresses. Obviously, it's not as bad as if we were just thrown up against a France or a Spain or a Netherlands in the first round, and the work that these players did in the first 3 games of in the group stage has put us in this position to be playing a team like Bosnia to ramp us into the World Cup. But I think that this is a game that must be won. This is a game that shows us what we have. And I'm excited for this game. I'm nervous for this game, but this is a game that the U.S. should win.
Yeah, wholeheartedly agree there. Bosnia had a rough group stage. I mean, they tied Canada 1-1, which is definitely an impressive, but then, of course, Switzerland's a pretty good side, I will admit. They lost 4-1 there and then beat Qatar 3-1, but that doesn't really count for anything, to be honest. Yeah. So, definitely a weaker side. The U.S. should, I think, comfortably win this game, but of course, Bosnia is going to have a chip on their shoulder, and they know they can do this. They did it with Italy, and that will give them extra confidence that they otherwise may not have. So watch out for them. But I think knock on wood, I think the U.S. should comfortably win this game.
Yeah.
Moving on, Belgium, Senegal. Here I would really love to pick against Belgium because of this dark horse gimmick that I'm getting so tired of. But I mean, Senegal has just looked, I think, pretty horrible since basically, again, right, we talked about this. Did they win AFCON? Who knows? But since that AFCON stuff, they have not looked good. Of course, we beat them in that friendly, which, friendlies are friendlies, whatever. But then, of course, they tied Saudi Arabia in that next friendly. And then once the group stage starts, I think France, took care of them handedly. Norway beats them as well, and then they beat up on Iraq. And again, I would love to pick against Belgium here because I'm just, exhausted with the whole Belgium gimmick. But I just think Senegal is a very weak team right now.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to pick Senegal, but for slightly different reasons. I think that if anything, I'm going to pick Belgium, but for slightly different reasons. I think that if anything, in my opinion, this game is a game that Senegal should win, and it's because of their success in AFCON. It's because they're such a strong side. They have a very good team. Belgium has a horrible track record in the World Cup. They've been a team that's just really fallen off, a very older squad, and it's been tough to watch Belgium, in the past couple of years with the talent that they have had in the past and how that's really just puttering out at the current stage. But with that being said, I also want to look at the groups that these teams have. Senegal is coming off of, 2 losses in the group stage, but these losses, you have to understand, are against France and Norway. These are competitive losses. Senegal is coming into this game having played real powerhouses in the sport, and I think that they are they're battle hardened at this point. They've played serious teams. Belgium is no different than a France or a Norway. And I think that this is a game that they will now be prepared for. And so, you look at their group and you look at the context, it makes sense why Senegal might finish 3rd in their group. Compare that then to Belgium, who topped a group of Egypt, Iran, and New Zealand. And not only did they top that group, but they actually drew with Egypt. And, it looks like they topped the group, but were level on points with Egypt, and had 2 draws in these games. So this is a Belgium team that had a really easy group and somehow did not absolutely run away with it, which I think is a little bit disappointing. However, at the end of the day, I think that Belgium will find their form. I think that they're a team that's going to putter out earlier on in this World Cup than they would want to, but I think that it's a team who can muster enough strength to get past Senegal. And you start looking down further into this bracket, you look at that they could be playing the U.S. in the next round. I think that this is a team that we want to be playing at that stage in the bracket. So I would be happy with Belgium as an opponent in this round of 16. But so yeah, I'm going to go with Belgium, but definitely sort of a game that I'd be interested to watch to see what this result is going to be.
Yeah, and absolutely insane to your point that they didn't just steamroll that group, right? You have a midfield consisting of Kevin De Bruyne, Yuri Tielemans, Amadou Onana, two Villa guys, funny enough, right? Yeah. Vanaken's getting reps as well. Yeah. Maybe Witzel might get in there. But then, of course, on your attack, you have Doku, Trossard, Lukaku. This Thornton is a star. Yeah. Yep, exactly. This is a star-studded lineup, and it's absolutely shocking. We'll get there, right? I'm going to, I think take the U.S. when we get to that because of that reason, because they've looked so unconvincing and just a really weak group. And it was, an ugly way to do it. But we'll save that for a second. On to, I think, probably the second best round of 32 match just behind, maybe Portugal, Croatia, or the Netherlands and Morocco. You have Brazil facing Japan. This is going to be very, very interesting.
I'd love to catch this game as well. Yeah.
Yeah. It looks like it'll be Monday at 1 p.m. because these are all Pacific time, 1 p.m. on the East Coast. I really want to pick Japan here. I love Japan. I love how they've slowly been building themselves as like a reputable, power to be reckoned with on the world footballing stage. However, right, Brazil kind of it has that name, like you are Brazil, but I don't know how far that name can take you necessarily. And again, it's always hard to go off the group stage because, it's only 3 games, right? But they looked, again, not super convincing in what I would call a pretty weak group, right? Of course, Morocco's a good team, but you have Scotland and Haiti, and even against, weak teams like that, of course, they came away with points and whatnot. But when they played a quality side in Morocco, it was a really ugly 1-1 draw. And, for that reason, I'm gonna stick my head out here and say Japan, because I think this is, finally Japan's moment. I think they've been building to this for so many years, and now you have a chance to really prove yourself, right? This is like your statement win. And perhaps they're in an easier side of the bracket, and if they can get over this Brazil hump, I think they have legitimate shots against teams like Norway and England and what you have. So I think Japan here.
Yeah. I'm starting to feel really boring because I feel like I'm only picking overdogs. I'd go with Brazil here, but
they're overdogs for a reason, though.
Yeah. Right? But it's starting to make me second guess some of my previous picks. But I'd go with Brazil. I think that they're a team that has struggled to find identity. I think that they're a team that has a lot of stars on their team, but not maybe as many like real results. It's been a while since Brazil's won much of anything. I can't even think of, whether it's the South American tournament or going far in the World Cup. It's just not something that they've done very recently. And as you're saying, Japan's definitely a team on that upward trend. Japan's a team that has shown that they can hang with serious European and other parts of the world top opposition and like really establish themselves. With that being said, I just think that Brazil, although they're not a team that I would peg to go very far in this tournament, I think that they're a team that can get over the hump that is Japan. And so for that reason, I'd pick Brazil, but I don't hate Japan as a pick there. I think that if there was any superstar to fall in the first round, it would be Brazil. They're just a team that I haven't seen enough convincing out of for me to have them going very far in this tournament at all.
Yeah, and I mean, for a team like Brazil, of course, I think, your last major trophy outside of that 2002 World Cup is they won the Copa America in 2019. But for a South American superpower like Brazil, your last trophy being almost 8 years ago is well below the standard of where they need to be. Yeah. Again, with that being said, if they can get guys like Rafinha or, whoever it may be to actually get firing on all cylinders, right? He's been very dormant, kind of ghosting this World Cup, dare I say. If they can get him going, like, all right, then I think Brazil's a serious threat. But like you said, they have a lot of stars and just not a lot of production right now to back it all up.
Yeah, without a doubt. This will be an interesting one to watch for sure.
Yeah. Going on, Norway draw the Ivory Coast, right? You just said they instead of going for that, that France, topping the group of France to get Sweden, they seem to prefer to be on this Ivory Coast, Brazil side of the bracket here. I'm going to go with Norway simply because of one man. Of course, that's Erling Haaland. Already Norway's all-time leading goal scorer in the World Cup with 4. Or did he score in that third game? Did that happen?
I'm not entirely positive
because I know he didn't. Oh no. It was Thilo Asgard.
He came off the bench.
Yeah. He didn't start, but 2 goals and 2 big games for Norway's first time back in the World Cup in a very long time. I think Holland's just such a dominant force, and they also have other parts of that roster who are they're class players, and I think they really support Holland, to be honest. And you like your Odegaards and your I can never pronounce this game. It's the Arsnes, number 14, Frederick Arsnes, that midfielder. Him and Odegaard always linking up with Holland, and I think that just makes the Norwegians a little too much to handle for the Ivory Coast.
Yeah, without a doubt, I'm going Norway here too. I think that Holland is just the type of player who's on your team who is an absolute competitor. It's similar to having someone like Ronaldo on your team, as old and maybe unproductive as Ronaldo is in his age, but he is just such a competitor. Like, nobody on that field wants it more than him, and that for a national team, especially a national team that has so much support from Norway, for this being the first team that's made a World Cup, and as you said, 20 plus years, I think this is an exciting game, and I'm very disappointed, and at the same time, I understand why they did it, but very disappointed that we never got that Mbappe-Holland matchup. But I genuinely do believe that Norway had a chance to top that group going toe-to-toe with France. Now, granted, obviously, it makes sense why they would pick this side of the bracket. I think it's understandable that they'd rather take on, after the discussion we just had, take on a Brazil and an England rather than that star-studded top left side of the bracket. But I think this Norway team is a team to look out for, and it's a team that we haven't looked out for in World Cups previous, but it's going to be a really exciting tournament push for them if they can just play to their strengths, which are mainly summed up, as you said, with one guy, and it's Holland. It's going to be Holland who carries them far, and it's going to be, if he's not as productive, it's going to be him who, could be the one to blame if they don't go far. So I'm really excited to watch him play, and I'm excited to see Norway do what they can do.
Yeah, and that's actually a really good point there that you just made. I hadn't really given too much thought, but yeah, I think this country's success is literally riding on his shoulders, and I think if they do not succeed, he's going to take the brunt of that fall for them. But that's what great players do, right? If you're going to be great, expectations, are going to come with that. And I think he showed us, right? He showed the world he can perform at the very top level of international football, of course, at Man City. So very excited to get to watch him play, and hopefully the Norwegians can go far here. Moving on, our neighbors to the south, Mexico, get to take on Ecuador, right? This Ecuador team just came off that really big 2-1 victory over Germany, where they looked honestly pretty in control over that German team. And like you said, that might have not been Germany's, full starting 11, but nonetheless, a huge win for Ecuador. However, Mexico was one of 3 teams in the group stage to finish with 3 wins and all 9 points, joining literally the 2 teams that played in the World Cup final last year with France and Argentina. And, you can say what you want about their group. It might have not been the best, but, right, coming in, right, South Korea and Czechia, right, a European team, which, often get a little boost in the ratings, and then a South Korea team that's been, pretty solid. Of course, they had, a disastrous World Cup this year, and then a South African team that, always can perform, when the lights are the brightest. And I was, I love rooting for CONCACAF teams, to be honest, right? When we play Mexico, absolutely hate them, and, hope they, the stadium blows up as a joke, of course. But when CONCACAF teams get chances to, show that our region of the world is, developing in terms of football, it's really hard not to root for them. And, that's why I'm going to go with Mexico, just because they were so convincing in that group stage, getting all those 9 points against teams who, I think people definitely had South Korea, finishing ahead of them. And, I even saw Czechia in certain conversations to, see them second and Mexico third. So very impressed by them. And for that reason, I'm going to be going with them over Ecuador.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself about the excitement around North American soccer and the development that it's had over the last couple of years. And as much as I hate Mexico and love it every time the U.S. beats them, it's a team that I do believe has the power to take on Ecuador. When we talked earlier about Spain, and you said that you saw Spain going out in the first round, and I said that there are certain teams out there that I believe that Spain would struggle against, and I just don't think Austria is one of them. I think both Mexico and Ecuador are teams that I would see Spain struggling against, and it's because of that South American, Central American style of soccer that's so choppy and so anti-European in a way. I think that both of these teams, this is going to be sort of a terrorism game of soccer. We're going to see some hard fouls. We're going to see some studs up challenges, but I think it's going to be exciting. I think these teams are going to beat each other up. And I think that whichever team comes out of this game is going to be a disruptor. I think that they're going to be a disruptor against England. I think it's going to be a difficult game. Whoever, we would assume it would be England going through this next game, but whoever England of these two has to play, it's going to be a disruptive game of soccer. And the way that England handles that is going to, in my opinion, decide if they have what it takes to go further in this tournament or not. So this will definitely be a game to watch. I think it'll be a really interesting game as far as implications later on in the tournament.
Yeah, and great point. Like, they're gonna murder each other. Like, people literally will die on that pitch. Right, that South Africa game, I think 3 or 4 red cards.
Yeah.
And right, of course, just when South America, like if you watch the Copa Americas, like when South American and Central American teams clash, excuse me, it just gets real violent sometimes, especially towards the end of the game when with Uruguay, right? That
when you have nothing to lose anymore.
Yeah, when they just know they just do not care. They'll just try and break someone's leg. So, yes, going to be a fiery one, but I think I'm going Mexico here.
Yeah.
I'm going to pencil in England as well. And no hate to the Congo. This is a team that did tie Portugal, which is, very impressive for them. But I think this is just one of the better England teams we've seen in recent memory. They seem very filled out and, even to the point where they're leaving off players like a Harry Maguire or a Cole Palmer, or I'm trying to think who else was the snubs. But, regardless, I think, the Fodens, right? This team is, I don't think going to be stopped, especially not in an elimination knockout game of football by the Congo. I think England should comfortably advance to the next round against Mexico.
Yeah. Without a doubt. Hats off to the Congo for making it this far in the tournament. I think it's so impressive that they were able to pull off a win. It was against Uzbekistan, but to make it, 4 points in the tournament, a draw against Portugal as well. I think that they've done all that they could have ever imagined themselves doing to get to this point. And now it's kind of time for, you knew you were going to come up against a big powerhouse, and here it is. This is going to be the biggest blowout of the round of 32. It'll be 4 or 5-0, I think, in my opinion. But, but you can't even really be upset as the Congo. I think England is just the better team, and that's how it's going to play out. But still, this will be it'll be a fun one for sure. But England's going to run away with it.
Yeah, and very similarly here with Argentina, right? Yeah. Just absolutely horrible that Cabo Verde, after the magical run they have, just draw the reigning world champions, right? I guess that's how the cookie crumbles sometimes. And, Cabo Verde they've shown their class, right, against Spain, against all the other teams in their group. But again, when it comes to elimination time, I don't think they're going to be able to hold off Argentina, especially not in a game that's going to, could go into extra time or penalties. Definitely not extra time, right? Like they were, on the last straw there with Spain and, just outlasted them into that 90 plus. But if you try and drag out a game with Argentina into the the 100s minutes. I don't think it's going to go too well, which stinks because I think Cabo Verde, again, like Congo, should be incredibly proud of themselves. And it's been, an absolute pleasure to watch this magical, story run happen, but just an absolute shame, in my opinion, that they get matched up with Argentina here.
Yeah, and that's just kind of how it goes. The deeper you go in the tournament, unfortunately, they don't have a win so far this tournament, which is one of the funny things. 3 points, 3 draws, but it was fun to watch. Cabo Verde with their goalkeeper, had that heroic game against Spain, another draw against Uruguay.
Bazinha, that's right.
Yeah, and then a draw against Saudi Arabia. All 3 of them, honestly, if you looked at this team beforehand, you'd think that all 3 of these, Uruguay, Saudi Arabia, and Spain, are all teams that should be making it through into the next round and even winning a few games in the tournament. We saw, Saudi Arabia is a team that can do something in the World Cup, and so for Cabo Verde to come out of that group is something special. Obviously, they're going to lose to Argentina, but I wouldn't be surprised if that game is 0-0 in the 70th minute. I think that's just, that's the type of team Cabo Verde is. Argentina's going to win, but it'll be a fun one to watch without a doubt.
Absolutely. I'm a little torn here. This is probably, I think, one of the hardest ones to decide between Australia and Egypt. Yeah. I think they're just very similar, honestly, in terms of vibes, but also in tactics. And I'm interested to see if Australia is going to come out in that low block, because it did work, decently well in the group stages against us, right? It was tough for them because we nabbed that early own goal off of Balogun.
Yeah.
Egypt, of course, I think a very more, a lot more aggressive and attack-oriented style of football. And I think if Australia come out in this low block, I don't think Egypt have the attacking quality, I guess, outside of Mo Salah, really, to break down this low block that Australia is going to bring. And I think I'm going to go with Australia here, because I think they're going to grind out Egypt and then just, nick them on the counter attack when they're sleeping. And I think it's going to be like a 1-0 type of game.
Yeah, I think without a doubt that whatever team comes out of this section of the bracket, we talked about it earlier, but the lack of quality there seems to be on this bottom right side of the bracket where Argentina's matched up with. I think that ultimately it shouldn't matter very much who comes out of this game specifically, because I just think Argentina is going to bulldoze anyone who finds himself down here. But I would go with Egypt, but I don't think it's a particularly impactful game as far as implications for the whole tournament. I think that if there was a game that I was not going to watch for this whole tournament, it would be this game. I just don't think either of these teams have the quality to go. Even if they weren't playing Argentina in the next round, I don't think either of them have quality to go much further than where they're at right now.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting, because like you said, I think you could really pick either way, but I think this literally means nothing, because I think Argentina will just rip them to absolute shreds. So, it'll be good for whoever wins, right, to get that knockout win under their belt. But in the end, I don't see a future as well for all these teams. Here's an interesting one, because I was really high on Switzerland and probably going to pick them, but that Algeria game last night or 2 nights ago, I'm forgetting, was just absolutely mental, and they really showed, some actual class there against Austria in that 3-3 game, taking them to the death, which ultimately let both Austria and Algeria qualify. I really want to pick them. I do, but at the same time, this Switzerland team did top their group. Of course, they might have had one of the weakest groups in the entire tournament, with Qatar, Bosnia, and Canada. But actually, you know what? I'm going bold here. I'm going to take Algeria. I really want to see them. I want to see them succeed, and I think they have a legitimate shot.
Yeah, I think that of all the stereotypical European powerhouses, Switzerland is one of those ones that I could see struggling a little bit in these tournament, like these early tournament games where some of the feeder teams kind of match up against the powerhouses. I think that Algeria is a very strong team. I think that again, like you said, that 3-3 game was really something to watch, and I do believe that Algeria has the ability to win this game. I think that, like you said, Switzerland is coming off of a walk in the park group stage. I think that the character that Algeria had to show to get out of their group says something about them as a team. And again, like as I said with the game before, I think that grand scheme of things, this is not a game that's going to matter very much because inevitably they're going to face Argentina later on. But I still think that it's definitely one that could go in Algeria's favor, given just the grit that they had to show to get here to begin with.
Yeah, absolutely. I know I was, speaking really highly of Ghana, right? I said they always seem to show up in the World Cup, but I just think there's a certain, I don't know if aura is the correct word here, around just South American teams in elimination games. It's really just, you see that passion, that like life or death, and they are absolute fighters. They are so intense. And I also just think Colombia is a very good side just to begin with. And again, no knock on Ghana, but when you run into South Americans, I think running into South American sides in almost any game is just pretty terrifying, just with how aggressive and how physical, and they're really not afraid to take cards to send a message, to be quite honest. So I'm going to go with Colombia, because one, I just think they outclass Ghana with their current roster, but also just they have that that fight or flight, and they're going to fight.
Yeah, I sound like a broken record at this point, but again, I just don't think that this is a game that's going to matter very much. I think that I'd go with Colombia. It was good to see Ghana get the draw against England, and that was an impressive watch for sure. And I also would say that Ghana had a fairly difficult group to make it out of. A win against Panama, and then they did lose to Croatia, but it was a draw against England that ended up giving them the points to carry on. So I don't know. I think that this game could go either way. I think actually I would go with Ghana here, even as far as to say that I think they're the team that could even make it as far as the quarterfinals. But again, at the end of the day, everything that happens in the side of the bracket with Argentina, especially without much other quality in this quadrant of the bracket, I think that pretty inconsequential as far as overall results.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, that was the round of 32. We're gonna now go through the rest here. I'm gonna go with France. Right, I think they're just the clear and obvious favorite. We talked about their class. Germany is similar to Spain with the aspect that they conquered the mountain, and now they are struggling to climb back up it again, right? Grouped in the last two World Cups, looked very unconvincing in the group stages, and then you just couple all of that with the fact that you're running into maybe one of the best international teams we've seen in a very long time. I think this favors France quite heavily.
Yeah, a game to watch without a doubt. France is going to take it, but it'll be an exciting one. I would love to see Germany put up a fight. I think that France, just from sheer power and quality, are going to take the game, but it will be an exciting game to watch. There will be goals on both sides. So at the end of the day, France is going to take it.
Yeah, absolutely. Canada and Morocco. Again, I love Canada. I love Jesse Marsch, but I just think Morocco's, just outclasses them on every level. And, what Morocco has that Canada doesn't, besides the superior roster and technical abilities, is the experience in the knockout rounds and in major, international tournaments like AFCON. So I just think it's going to be too much for Canada, but I think they should be, proud of getting to the round of 16.
Yeah, without a doubt. I think that whoever it was going to be, Netherlands or Morocco, Canada was going to lose this game. So impressive that they got this far, but that's all there is to say about it, really.
Yeah. This one will be interesting, right? Because I said Austria because I was very high on them. But that was, I think, more just because I think Spain's a weak team, and I think Croatia is going to take this one. again, what Croatia has, similar to Morocco over Canada and Austria, is they have the experience of deep runs, especially in the World Cup, of course, coming the closest and 2018 when they fell to France 4-2. Yeah. But, Croatia have played these long, dragged out tournaments. And when you add that extra game with the round of 32 now, I think it just favors teams that have been here before even more. And, for that region, again, not to sound like also a broken record, but I think experience is king here for Croatia.
Yeah, I'm happy with that. I think that Spain has an argument to win this game as well against Croatia, but I'm happy with Croatia going through, whether it's against Spain or Austria. I think no matter who they play, they're a team to cheer for and a team to believe will get that win. They're just a very solid team.
Absolutely. And then, of course, the U.S., hopefully play Belgium here. Yeah. And I'm being dead serious. This is not a homer pick. I would seriously rate the U.S. over Belgium. This Belgium team has just looked pretty pathetic, especially in the group stage. And they've been the dark horses for the past 16 years. And, of course, nothing's happened. And, the whole rant I've been on before. And, I think, people have underestimated this home crowd advantage for the U.S. Those stadiums, SoFi and Lumen, or I guess they're technically, Seattle Stadium and Los Angeles Stadium, according to FIFA, but have just been absolutely rocking. And I think the U.S. are really riding high off this group stage game. People say that I don't know I guess I'll get your take on this, on that Turkey game. I don't think it hampered any momentum. Right. I think if anything, it should make you feel a little better that we have, outside of the defense, because Miles Robinson was on the pitch for an extended period of time. Outside of the defense, I was, very impressed with our depth guys. And despite, the heartbreak in the 90 plus, I couldn't really care, to be honest. We'd already topped the group. Would it have been cool to win all three and, join Mexico, Argentina, and France? Sure. But I think it was just a great move to get some, lesser experienced guys more run time, especially guys like Reyna, and then, even like Buea, right, who could see serious field time in the knockouts.
Yeah, of course. I think that I love the pick to put the guys on the bench to rest them up. I think that means that since whenever it was that we knew we were going to be playing Bosnia, and as we saw this bracket shaping up, we knew we were going to be the top of the group. So it was all about who are we going to be playing. And I think that it was the right choice to keep them on the bench and rest them, because that means that it's been all eyes on Bosnia, all eyes on Belgium for the last week by the time the game rolls around. So these guys have been doing nothing but watching film since that time. These guys have been doing nothing but training for these specific games. So I'm happy to see that nobody got too beat up. I'm happy to see that we're on fresh legs heading into this game. I don't think that it's going to hamper them, because I think that the World Cup is a big enough tournament where it's not like, you're into it pretty quickly and you're not going to lose focus because you missed a group stage game. It's all about the next game and the next game after that. So I think that the U.S. is carrying serious momentum into here. Without a doubt, they have a shot to beat Belgium, and I would pick them as a favorite.
Yeah, absolutely. Moving on back to the other side. I know I'm going to sound like a dummy because I was really speaking highly of them with Japan, and I said this is finally their moment with Brazil. But this is also Norway's moment, right? They have, over, way achieved what was expected of them. And again, it's going to depend. Can Holland and Odegaard, get those forward lines firing? I would really rate, I don't know what you think, I'd really rate a Norway over Japan here. I think it's, similar, both teams that don't really have too much. Of course, Japan has a little more experience in the knockouts than Norway, obviously, but it's not like Japan is, this solidified, giant yet. And, maybe they have to wait another 4 years to be there. And, I think I'm picking with my heart here, but I really want to see Norway do well. And for that reason, I think, Holland and friends are going to get it done.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself. I also do believe, though, I think that this is a good pick regardless of who they're playing. I think if they're playing Brazil, I would still pick Norway to win this game. I think that Norway has something that's going to really push them far in this tournament, and I would love to see them win again. Maybe I am picking with my heart. Maybe I am a big Holland fan, but I would love to see Norway make a big push here, and I think that they have the ability to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, again, this is the third time I've done it. But I know I was just speaking, so highly of Mexico, and I was like, I love when CONCACAF teams, do well. But again, you're running into an England side that is just absolutely loaded, right? You have Ollie Watkins, Anthony Gordon, Morgan Rogers, Rashford, Kane, Saka, Bellingham. Like, Declan Rice, I don't need to read the whole roster just because everybody knows how world class. Of course, they've been missing the aspect of really clicking all together as one group, and that's obviously preventing them from winning that big major trophy to get over the hump. But I just think England just is going to outclass Mexico. I think they're just too sturdy of a team, especially on this weaker side of the bracket. And I think England's actually I forgot to mention this, and I think this is very applicable. This Mexico-Ecuador game, like we said, is going to be a bloodbath, right? Your starting 11 is going to be out there. People are going to be picking up cards. There's going to be card trouble. There's going to be injuries probably from vicious tackles. England can probably, if all goes according to plan, rest most of their starters by halftime against the Congo. Of course, again, Congo, drew it out with Portugal, so it's not as easy as, I make it seem. But if they can really handle business, go into this Mexico game rested, I think this Mexico team's going to be a little too banged up, and England's just going to, outclass.
Yeah, I think this is one of the easiest picks of this, the quarterfinal. I think that, or the round of 16, I think that England's going to take this one, and that's just kind of how it goes. I think I would love to see Mexico put up a fight, but I don't see a future in which they win.
Yeah. I'm just going to go ahead here and highlight Argentina. Not to disrespect, of course, Australia, but I don't really think there's too much to say here. They're obviously going to come out in that low block, but I just think Argentina's talent is just too much for the Aussies, unfortunately.
Yeah, without a doubt. And honestly, in my opinion, you can throw them into the round after that too. I think that whoever comes out of Algeria, Colombia, like I said, this part of the bracket is such a there's just not enough quality here for any of these teams to put up. I think if Argentina were to play every single one of these teams tomorrow, they would beat every single one of them. I think that there is just not a team down here that I see in any future beating the Argentina the way that they're playing right now. So, and coming off of 3 wins in the group stage. So I would pick Algeria to come out of this game. But after that, again, I think it just doesn't matter. Money's still on Argentina to comfortably make it into the quarterfinal this way.
Yeah, and I'm going to disagree. I'm going to say Colombia, but to your point, not that it matters, because Argentina will, I think, handle Colombia or Algeria, whoever it may be, in the next round. I think, although if Argentina do draw Colombia, similar to this Mexico-Ecuador game, it's going to get pretty violent and physical. And if you're going to have to face up, we'll get to who comes out of Norway and England. You're going to want to be, rested to your fullest potential. And Colombia's obviously right. If they got nothing to lose, they got nothing to lose. Their tournament's over. But I'll say Colombia. But to your point, I think Argentina. We'll get back to this. We'll take the cake. But moving back up into the quarterfinals on the top right. Again, I feel bad not giving a bunch of analysis here, but like France is France, man. Yeah. And Morocco, right? We've said they've been here before. They've made these deep runs, but I just think France is gonna get them one more time. This France team is just way too good to really pick a. Of course, this is a 1-game elimination tournament, right? You have one bad game or one stupid mistake, and there goes your tournament wishes. But looking at it on a piece of paper here, I don't think you could really ever pick against France.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, I'm scrolling up right now through their previous games played. They lost to Ivory Coast playing their B team basically in a friendly in June. But other than that, like, they haven't had losses since mid 2025. They've just been a strong team for too much time recently for me to see them stumble here, even against a team as good as Morocco. I just think France is the best team in the world right now, and I think that if there was anyone who could maybe pull off an upset, I wouldn't be surprised if it was Morocco. They're just a really good team, as we said. They can make it far in a tournament. They're the best African team, in my opinion. I think that they could really make a case for why they would have a chance of winning. But at the end of the day, it's France, and they're going to win this game.
Yeah, absolutely. Now here, I'm absolutely torn, right? It just feels very unpatriotic and wrong to pick Croatia here. But Croatia is a really, really good side. And again, they have that experience. The U.S. hasn't, made it to the quarterfinals, outside of that 1930 run where we finished third, which doesn't count because it was 1930. The farthest we've ever made it was 2002 into the quarterfinals. And even then, that was only when there was a round of 16, right? So in the third knockout game, wherever I will be on Friday, July the 10th at 3:00 Eastern time, I will, I'll never give up hope for the U.S. here. But if we're picking statistically on, what is likely to happen, I think you unfortunately take Croatia here. But for that Friday, I will be going absolutely nuts. And I really hope, if the U.S. make that statement when like that, I probably will cry, like genuinely. So, unfortunately, Croatia.
I'm going to say some ridiculous comments right now, and it's because I'm American and I love the U.S. But I think that if you look at this lower left side of the bracket, obviously the lower right side that Argentina has is just a walk in the park for Argentina. They're going to make it out of there. But on this lower left-hand side, there are some very strong teams. You have Spain, you have Portugal, you have Croatia. But I would prefer this to be the side that we're on relative to a side that has a lot of South American sides or, Central American teams on it, African teams on it, because I think that the U.S. really plays to their strengths when they're playing this like European style of football, when they're playing a team like Croatia. Not that they could beat Croatia or Spain or Portugal. I think it would be a closer game than the rest of the world would care to admit, but not saying that they would beat any of these teams, but I think that they would find themselves better suited to beat a Croatia than they would to beat a Morocco or an Argentina or a Brazil. I think that that's just the style of play that suits them. I think that they could really go into a game like this and pull something off. And I don't know, like I would not give up hope.
This is ridiculous. This is ridiculous. I can't do that. That's just that feels wrong. And you know what? I will not stop believing in this team. Right. I don't know about you,
especially coming off of a win against a hypothetical Belgium. A hypothetical win against Belgium. Like Croatia and Belgium are arguably two very similar teams with their age and their quality in World Cups past. I think that if you can beat a Belgium, like who's to say you can't also beat a Croatia?
Yeah. If I ever do that again, like someone's got to just punch me in the face. Like I can't remember the last time I've had this much fun watching U.S. soccer.
Without a doubt. Yeah.
It's right. The only thing I could think of is, maybe the recent Gold Cups or Nations Leagues or whatever, but probably 2014 in Rio. And, I was 10 years old, right? That was 12 years ago now. I don't think I'll ever give up hope on this team. I really think, we've entered this new era, and, if we're going to do it, it's going to be on home soil. And you know what? Like, I agree with what you say. Like, we play better suited to that European style of football rather than South America. So, you know what? Like, not giving up hope. Not going to do it. Speaking of giving up hope, though, I think this is where Norway's, road ends. I don't think it's going to end in embarrassing fashion. I think this game's going to be a lot closer than most people think it will be. Of course, I think England's going to go through just because, again, right, if you're looking at it on paper, just the roster England has is just, it's almost like a France, of course, not as good as France, in my opinion, but just unfathomable to think that all these players are playing on the same national team. And, right, Norway really, to an extent, only have the Odegaards and the Hollands to get things done. When you come up with against a team who have basically 11 Odegaard and Holland quality players, I just think the other 9 Norwegian players on that field are going to be snuffled out, and I think this is where it ends for Norway. But a quarterfinal run is just absolutely incredible for the Norwegians.
Yeah. Maybe another ridiculous take from me, but I think that there's a chance that Norway pulls this one off. I would love to see.
I think it'll be close. Like, I think it will be close. I do agree. I think it will be close.
I would even go as far to say that I would pencil in Norway as my quarterfinalist. I think that England is just a team that seemed to struggle so well. I think that Norway could be the team that Croatia was in that 2018 World Cup, who made it to the World Cup final and beat some really great teams along the way, England being one of them. I think that the deeper that England go into a tournament, the more likely they are to bottle it. And I think that Norway is a team who is willing to capitalize on that. Norway is a team that's willing to beat you, when you're in that sort of situation. So I wouldn't be surprised if England won, but I would genuinely put serious thought into a situation in which Norway is a quarterfinalist. So
yeah, I mean, absolutely. And then if you want to look at England's World Cup track record, right? It's quarterfinalist, fourth placed, grouped in 2014, round of 16 in South Africa, quarterfinalist in 06 and 02, round of 16 in 98, didn't qualify for the last World Cup in the US, fourth place, quarterfinals, group stage, did not qualify in 74 and 78, quarterfinalists in 70, and of course they won in 66, right?
Yeah.
Reading that out loud is just, again, when you look at England's roster and you just look at the list of players who have walked through those doors, it's at Wembley, it's absolutely mind-boggling that's the farthest they've ever gone is fourth place, and more often than not they're going out very early. So I actually I'm gonna ride with England again, but I really think he could be right there because they just something's wrong with them. I don't know what it is, but they can't seem to get it done.
Yeah Always the trophy curse, the World Cup curse that seems to be following them. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to watch how they progress through this tournament.
Yeah. We've been saying it for the past hour, right? I think Argentina, I'm sure you agree.
Yep.
Again, no hate to Colombia. They're a solid side. They matched up in that Copa America final in what I think was 2024. But I just think Argentina just has way too much talent. And of course, they've obviously been here before and they're fresh off that confidence. Messi is somehow firing on all cylinders at 38 years old with 6, goals in the group stage already. I don't think any of them were penalties. He could have had 7 with that missed penalty against Austria. So I just think Argentina is very blessed to have this bottom right half, and I think they easily stroll into the semis.
Yeah, without a doubt. I agree with that. Again, been saying it for better part of an hour. Argentina just very fortunate with that lower right-hand side of the bracket, and they're going to be coming out of there, and not just coming out of there, but coming out of there healthy with a hopefully rested up Messi who's ready to take on these serious teams once they get into the Final Four.
Absolutely. So we just had this whole lecture about not giving up, and I have also said in the same episode that this might be the best national team ever assembled that I've watched, definitely in my lifetime. So I mean, geez, I really don't know what to do here. Realistically, I don't think anybody's stopping France, but God, I would love if we could do that. Right. I mean, hey, if we already beat Belgium and Croatia, right? It's just
momentum.
And I'm talking about France like they're invincible. Of course, they lost the last World Cup final to Argentina. And when was the last time they won the Euros? When was the last France Euro win? Obviously, they haven't won it super recently, I don't think. Yeah, right. They last won the Euros in 2000, 26 years ago. So, they're not this indestructible giant, but my goodness, they are insanely talented.
Yeah. Without a doubt. I'll put it this way. I think that France is on paper going to win. It'll be a little bit like the the AFCON final. France is going to win this one on paper, but it's going to be absolutely ridiculous. It's going to be robbed from the U.S. There's going to be some penalty calls that were not penalties, and France is going to steal this one away. The final score is going to be 4-3 with a France penalty at the very end. And they'll steal it, but you'll see reels for the next 4 years talking about how USA should have been winning that game. So
I don't think that was poetic. I don't think I could put it any better, right? I think France goes through, but if the only way the US lose, of course, is if they were egregiously robbed and for no other reason. Now back to this right side. Oh man, like I feel so boring going for a World Cup rematch. But it's not as far-fetched as obviously you think, right? Especially with I think this whole right side of the bracket is very weak. Especially even England's, right? Like Brazil's not what they used to be. Japan and Norway really haven't been here before. And it really seems like it's England's, quadrant to have.
Yeah.
And I do have a soft spot for England just because they have some of those Villa boys that, I'd love to see another villain lift the trophy. Of course, Emmy did it for Argentina in 2022.
Yeah.
But like you said, like, man, they just can't get over this hump. But, I'm going bold here. I'm going to say England make it to the World Cup final. Right. It's just it's one game. It's all it takes. And I think if there's a year they're going to do it, I think it's this year. I think their player like Harry Kane might be, you could argue he's the best player in the world. He just had 70 goals for club and country in a singular season. I think that's second all time. He just passed Ronaldo, now only behind Messi, who has like 76. I could be wrong, but you might have the best player in the world. And I think if it's going to happen, it's going to be this year.
Yeah. I think that I would take Argentina in this game, but I don't hate an England pick here. Like you said, Harry Kane. If England makes it to the World Cup final, I think that there are very serious and very real Harry Kane Ballon d'Or shouts. I think that he's a special player who's been a great player for some time. And also, I know we talked about the England curse in World Cups before this, but Harry Kane went trophyless for the first however many 28 years of his life until he joined Bayern Munich. So, the Harry Kane curse is maybe lifted. And there's a very good chance that England is able to make it to the final here. I think I don't hate that pick. Me personally, I would go with Argentina, but I don't hate England in the final at all.
Agreed. I'm going to go bold here. Give me England. Give me England. I know I've just been glazing France for the past, it's been an hour and 18 minutes. Give me England, right? It's got to happen. It's going to happen. Right. I think Harry Kane, I rate him so much. I don't know if it's so hard to call him the best player in the world just because there's literally so many players who are playing at world-class levels right now.
Yeah.
But picking with the heart, I want to see a new champion. Anything before the 80s doesn't count to me. So in my eyes, England have never won an actual World Cup. That's going to make a lot of British people really upset, but they'll deal with it. But they'll get my love back because I'm going England here. I'm taking England to win the 2026 World Cup.
Okay. Yeah. I'd go. I think my true winner out of the whole tournament would be France. But again, I think that England does have what it takes. I think that could be a game that they win. France to me just seems so invincible. I know we talked about they're not necessarily invincible, but to some extent they are just.
They are.
They're just a ridiculous team. So
agreed.
I would go with France, but again, like England has that quality. If they can push through Argentina in the semifinal, like nobody's stopping them from doing one more and beating France, especially if France inevitably is going to have to play the great United States in the semis, so they're going to be off a brutal game. So
and then it's also just karma, because after France robbed the U.S. in the semifinal, the football gods will not let them win a second World Cup in 3 tournaments, and therefore England has to beat France.
It only makes sense
from being wrong done.
Absolutely. So
of course. All right. Well, we are happy to present our listeners with only the best analysis on all of the footballing world right now. That's all we have for episode 22. Jack, thank you for coming out for a longer episode. This was a fun one. It'll get put to the test. We'll see how this episode ages come, let's see, July 19th is that final. So we will see, but thank you again, Jack. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, it was great to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Of course. All right. Remember, follow us on Instagram at Greenline Gazette, and then Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and Substack to listen or watch the podcast. We will see you for episode 23, where I will be breaking down the Bosnia matchup with the U.S. Wednesday at 8 o'clock.